Hello and welcome. I am Thomas Porteous and you are watching Newsx World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories of the hour. Palestinian officials say Israeli forces destroy at least 30 residential buildings in Gaza City, forcing thousands to flee as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives for talks. Israel vows to seize the city where 1 million people shelter as it intensifies strikes on what it calls Hamas's last bastion. An emergency summit of Arab and Islamic leaders meets today in Doha after Israel strikes on Hamas in Qatar, which killed 5 members but spared its leadership. The attack prompts Gulf states to close ranks behind Qatar, deepening strains in ties between the UAE and Israel. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng meet in Madrid to tackle tariffs, trade disputes and a looming deadline for TikTok's Chinese owner to divest. Officials expect only another extension with little progress on Russia oil pressures or the future of the popular app. Former boxing world champion Ricky Hatton is found dead at his home in Hyde, Greater Manchester, police have confirmed, at the age of 46. The British boxing icon, who retired in 2012 after winning titles at light welterweight and welterweight, had been planning a comeback in Dubai later this year. Ukraine's top general says mobile communications may be deliberately slowed during Russian drone attacks to block enemy coordination. Russia has intensified its drone campaign after 3.5 years of war, deploying more advanced drones to target strategic sites and infrastructure. Romania says a Russian drone entered its territory during strikes on Ukraine, the second NATO country to report such an incursion after Poland. President Zelensky calls it an expansion of the war as Warsaw heightens air defences and the Czech Republic deploys helicopter units to support Poland. Nepal's health ministry says 72 people are now confirmed dead after anti-corruption protests set government offices, homes and buildings ablaze. The violence, the deadliest in decades, forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign after days of unrests led mainly by young demonstrators. FBI Director Kash Patel prepares to face Senate and House Judiciary committees this week after early missteps in the Charlie Kirk murder probe, including a false announcement of an arrest. Lawmakers are expected to grill him on his handling of the case and whether he can stabilize an FBI riven by political divisions and internal turmoil. Now we start this hour in Europe, where Ukraine's military intelligence agency has claimed responsibility for 2 major attacks on Russia's railway system over the weekend. According to a report, the operation targeted critical supply routes used by Russian forces in the Kharkiv and Sumy directions. The first blast occurred on September the 13th on the Okhotsk line, where mines detonated during a demining attempt, killing 2 Russian National Guard officers and injuring another. In a separate incident on the next day, an explosion hit the St. Petersburg-Peskov railway, derailing a locomotive and destroying 15 fuel tankers. Officials say the damage has halted train services and disrupted Russia's supply chains. Ukraine's HUR agency has said the operation was uniquely complex and will force Russia into serious logistical challenges that could limit its offensive operations. The claims, however, have not been independently verified. We are now joined by Matti Zweig. He is a geopolitical expert and he joins us live from Israel. Matti, thank you very much for joining us here. How significant How significant of an operation is this? We've seen these visuals of these trains completely derailed, carriages strewn over the railway on their side and such. How will this affect Russia's military operations?
Well, from the Ukrainian point of view, of course, it's a complex operation to get to such intel and to be really capable of doing such things, especially because there were trains that were trying to get the supplies and other things to areas that they have been conquered, and they are on the way to big cities in Ukraine, like Sumy and of course Kharkov. They are trying to open their way, invading and conquering more and more villages in their way to these places. So it was really successful for them. But this is a kind of dichotomy, because from one side, you see that every time the Ukrainians can do big and complex operations like they did in the past in the southwestern parts of Russia inside, or including refineries, including army bases, etc. But according what's happening on the ground, the Russians in the last 10, 11 months, they are all the time going further and further and conquering more and more villages and area, especially in eastern Ukraine. So this is a big dichotomy, that from one side they can do big operations, on the other side they failed in the last year to do a big counter-offensive and to take back their territories.
Yes, Matti, thank you very much for your insight. Do stay with us, but here on Newsx World, we will continue to bring you all the updates coming out of the ongoing Russia and Ukraine conflict. However, next, we'll go to West Asia, where a high-stakes summit is underway in Doha, Qatar, as foreign ministers from Arab and Muslim countries meet behind closed doors. The gathering aims to form a formal response to Israel's recent airstrikes on Qatar's capital. The summit, which is hosted by Qatar, brings together leaders from the 57-member Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the 22-member Arab League. According to reports, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim are confirmed to be attending. Qatar's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani will also address delegates, framing the discussions. A draft resolution will be presented to leaders on Monday, marking a pivotal moment in regional diplomacy. The summit highlights escalating tensions in the Middle East and underscores Qatar's critical role in mediating these ongoing discussions. We are once again joined by Matti Zaweg to discuss this further, coming out of Doha. Matti, of course, a significant event, those Israeli strikes on the Qatari capital, strikes which many say violated Qatar's sovereignty. What does this signal that the Arab League and the OIC are jointly meeting in Doha, and how unusual is such a coordination in response to these Israeli actions?
It's really complicated, because in the last years, and especially since 7th of October 23, Qatar has presented themselves as the only and the most powerful mediator to get something between Hamas and the state of Israel. And all the time there were many voices in Israel and in the United States and in the world that they say that Hamas is not clean, that Hamas is not coming, that they are not really to trust, because they say they can mediate and they are not really mediating, because they were giving a lot of support all the years to Hamas, including hundreds of millions of dollars to build all their tunnels and all their arsenal and all their capacity that brought them to that fatal day that was the 7th of October 23. So in Israel, it's like after all these developments and after all the mediation and after everything that happened, they got in the government to the conclusion that they are not to trust anymore, and they did what they did.
Okay.
To harm anything that are only Hamas, of course, a violation of another country and another soul. But let's not forget what also Qatar did for Hamas all these years. So it's really complicated for Israel. Of course, they have to take in account that they also friends are going to be very angry with them, including Canada, threatening Israel and other countries. So it's a very complicated situation. But from the point of view of the summit of Arab countries, they did a lot of summits in the past. Now they are really angry, so they're going to maybe speak in a harsher way. Maybe there's going to be some step of freezing something that is connected to the Abraham Accords, which is very bad for Israel.
Yes.
But I don't think that in this stage is going to be more than that.
Yes, Matty Zaweg, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Always a pleasure to get your insight. We stay in the region for our next story, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the visit of top US diplomat Marco Rubio highlights the enduring strength of the relationship between Israel and the United States. Netanyahu described Rubio as an extraordinary friend of Israel and emphasized that his visit also underscored the strong and durable alliance between the two nations. Meanwhile, the leaders, accompanied by Washington's envoy to Israel, Mike Huckabee, offered prayers together at Jerusalem's Western Wall. Rubio's visit to Israel comes amid the ongoing conflict in the region. The administration has reiterated its unwavering support for Israel in its war against Hamas. We are now joined by Ahmed Fatwa, who is the spokesperson for the Fatah movement, and he joins us live from Ramallah. Ahmed, we're going to go over to what's going on in the Strip right now. But what I wanted to ask you here is that how important is the United States support, and especially the Trump administration and the Biden administration's support, so bipartisan support here for the Israeli government in this war, and of course previously to that as well?
Thank you for having me. Of course, this unlimited support and this unconditional impunity that is offered to Israel by the United States is crippling, the peace in the region and the issue of the Palestinian cause and the question of Palestine and our liberation and our right to self-determination for the past, not only for the couple of years, also in the past, since the beginning of this occupation, actually. But what Israel has been doing lately is endangering the entire region now and destabilizing all the region. They are invading and attacking the sovereignty of several nations. Until now, they bombed 7 countries in the Middle East. So this is a crucial intervention and a crucial attack that requires immediate intervention by the international community. And the United States need to question their support to, and their unlimited support to their ally in the region, because it's endangering the whole stability, which would endanger world peace. And now we have the last UN resolution that adopted the two-state solution as an official document voted by the majority of 142 countries and only 10 against, and which include, of course, United States and Israel. So that is a worldwide call for the United States to step up and go for the two-state solution and to pressure on Israel to curb its aggression and invasion into the entire region. This needs to stop, and this genocide is still ongoing. And I think there's no institution, there's no respectable institution in the past 2 years that haven't reported about the mass grave violation that Israel is committing against the Palestinian people. Your previous guests talk about the mediators being unfair. Now, there's 2 things that need to be dismantled, these 2 propaganda items that Israel keep repeating, that they have been providing money to Hamas, Qatar. Yes, that happened based on an Israeli request. Netanyahu asked the Qatari Prime Minister to send money to Hamas. This is widely known. And they are existing in the Hamas political bureau in Qatar, are there based on a US request in order to go for mediation. So that needs to be known by now by everyone, and it is really ridiculous that Israeli propagandists keep repeating it. It's Netanyahu who sent money for the past years to Hamas, and that is part in his plan to weaken the Palestinian official authority and to weaken the Fatah movement, our party, and to keep the division. And he said it in multiple occasions, earliest in 2019, and he repeated it recently that he's done massive work to erase the Palestinian state, and he said this land is ours, which is a great declaration and a clear declaration by the war criminal Netanyahu saying that he is going after the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. That demands the world to react.
Yes, Ahmed Fatwa, do stay with us. We have updates from the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, while this was happening, violence and destruction continues in Gaza amid Israel's ongoing military offensive. The Israeli army has issued a forced displacement evacuation order for residents in Gaza's Rimal neighborhood. They are instructed to move south towards what Israel calls a humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis for their safety. Palestinians fleeing intensified Israeli bombardment described the chaos and fear as they travel on foot or bulldozers with little belongings. Transportation is scarce and unaffordable, forcing many to carry what they can. Many refuse to leave, fearing unsafe conditions in the south. Let's have a look at what some of them had to say.
ونازحين زي كل الناس نازحة لو مش صعب عنا إلي 4 ساعات لسه ما وصلناش طبة النويري نصها ماشي ونصها قاعدين في هنا في الجرافة قاعدين ماشي يعني الوضع صعب أقول لك أغلبية الناس ما حاش تجيب سيارة نقل وتنقل يعني الإشي فوق ما تتصور صعب يعني مش عارف هي هذه مش حياة أقول لك يجيبوا لنا سفينة ويطلعونا وخلصنا انهلكنا هذه مش حياة أصلا هذه مش حياة يعني أقول لك الدواب عايشين أحسن منا
بضربوا أبراج عنا وإحنا خفنا على هالأطفال وهذا وطلعنا والله نسبنا إضعينا وحالنا والله وطلعنا وهينا والله هينا هالصبي من النصر إحنا مسكان جبال البلد وفي النصر ومن النصر هينا اجينا هنا والله وهو يزقني.
انا عمري 62 سنه نازح مشي جاي مشي من تل الهواء وطلعت من الشيخ رضوان كمان مشي وهي جاتي مشي بدي اطلع وبدي اكمل الطريق مشي. ايش مش عارف انا العالم يعني اذا بديش يتحرك عشان ينقذ الشعب الغلبان التعبان يعني ميت شعب ميت. لو تشوف حال الناس كيف يعني الله بعلم حالها يعني الناس كلها ميتة.
Now once again joined by Ahmed Fatwa, he's spokesperson for the Fatah movement, joining us live from Ramallah. I first of all want to apologise for our viewers. I accidentally misspoke there, called them forced displacement orders when they were meant to be evacuation. However, what does this forced evacuation order from Gaza City tell us about the scale of displacement in this conflict, Ahmed? We now know that the IDF has said that 300,000 Palestinians have now left Gaza City, the Gaza Strip's most built-up area. What are your thoughts on this sheer scale of displacement that this conflict has caused?
It is a forced displacement, as you said. It is a crime against humanity that's taking place. People are living under terror and fear, and this indiscriminate bombardment for the last 2 years that is targeting civilians, hospitals, schools, and every living thing in Gaza. Gaza are dying with the streets. The Gazans have nowhere to go. There is no safe zone in Gaza. This is a lie. Israel is bombing everything they could see. Now the people are asked to leave from the south to the north. This comes after several times that they have been displaced forcefully without any prospects of living in good conditions to do such transfer. There's no humanitarian aid. There's no humanitarian support for that transfer. Netanyahu has said in several occasions by now, and all the Israeli government officials, from the finance minister, from the security minister, from the Knesset members, the parliament members, that they want to ethnic cleanse Gaza. So it's time to say what it is, to call a spade a spade. This is an ethnic cleansing campaign to force the Palestinian people to leave their lands.
Ahmed, forgive me for interrupting. These residents of Gaza City have been told to move south into what Israel is calling a humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis. How safe is this so-called humanitarian area, given the fact there has been record strikes in the past and reported severe overcrowding and shortage of supplies there.
There is no humanitarian area in Gaza. Everything is under bombardment. Everything is under fire. Everybody is in danger and their life in danger. Now the world needs to act and to enforce Israel to stop their crimes against humanity. As you said, the Mawasi was bombed several times. Al-Mawasi has no aid, has no tents. There is no healthcare system. There is no international organization there to take care of the people. So we are talking about a situation here where the people are relying on their own survival instincts to survive. It is a crime against humanity, and it is a shame that it's taking place in 2025. What's needed now is an immediate ceasefire and to go for the implementation of the New York Declaration that was adopted in the United Nations. Because Israel is obviously, without any doubt, is after the ethnic cleansing and the erasure of the Palestinian state. They said it in several occasions, and this is the plan. Now the world needs to act. The Arab and Islamic Summit is tomorrow gonna take decisions, and the world will take decision in 22 in September, and that is what we are waiting for. And hopefully the world will step up to its moral and legal obligation and to stop the occupation from killing and massacring the Palestinian people for the past 24 months.
Ahmed, Israel has cited that this area of Gaza City is Hamas's last bastion, as it calls it. Do you think Israel is meeting its military objectives in defeating Hamas's last bastion?
There is no military objectives. The Israeli army and the generals have said 2 months ago, I believe, they said we have no target, no military target. We have achieved everything. There is nothing. This, how cruel this occupation is. This bombardment is taking place for no actual reason. They are bombing civilians. They are destroying the long towers, the big buildings, which holds and is a residence for thousands of families, for thousands of peoples, and to move them and push them away. This has nothing to do with any military concern. It does not make sense that as a nuclear power is doing all this damage to fight about 20,000 fighters. Their biggest arm is an RPG. That does not. In what world are we speaking that this is going to be explained and be accepted? This is nonsense, of course. Israel is doing a mass killing campaign against the Palestinian people in cruelty, and we have all the evidence of the world to prove that. Israel needs to go to the World Court, not to the United Nations, and to speak with other nations. They are criminals and a rogue state that endangering the peace of Middle East and the entire world.
Okay, Ahmed Fatwa, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. We now move on and over to Europe, where US and Chinese officials have begun talks in Madrid on their strained trade ties, a looming divestiture deadline for Chinese short video app TikTok, and Washington's demands that its allies place tariffs on China over its purchases of Russian oil. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and US Trade Representative Jameson Greer arrived shortly before Chinese Premier Li Haifeng and Chinese top trade negotiator Cheng Gang at the Baroque Palace de Santa Cruz, which houses Spain's foreign ministry in the Spanish capital. The talks mark the fourth time in 4 months that the delegations have met in European cities to try and keep a fractured US-China trade relationship from collapsing under President Donald Trump's tariffs. The delegations last met in Stockholm in July, where they agreed in principle to extend for 90 days a trade truce that sharply reduced triple-digit retaliatory tariffs on both sides and restarted the flow of rare earth minerals from China to the United States. Trump has approved the extension of current US tariff rates on Chinese goods, totaling about 55% until November the 10th. We are now joined by William Yang. He is a China analyst, and he joins us live from Taipei, Taiwan. Thank you very much, William, for joining us here on the programme. William, with these US tariffs on Chinese goods averaging at about 55% until at least November the 10th, how sustainable is this for both of the world's top two economies?
So I think if we look at the Chinese economic data in recent months, it's pretty clear that Beijing feels like the current level of the tariffs is bearable for the Chinese economy, at least in the short term and until in the near future. And they have confidence in their political system to be able to actually continue to come up with short-term solutions to withstand the current level of the tariffs. And because of the US reactions to the Chinese decision to temporarily suspend the export of critical minerals, Beijing continues to believe that the momentum is on their side and they have more leverage over the United States to extend the current level of the trade negotiations. So I think the Chinese is going to continue to wait for the first signal of concession from the United States before they actually agree to make further concessions. And when it comes to the current round of the talks, the Chinese state media People's Daily published a very important opinion piece earlier today saying that Beijing will be looking at the TikTok discussion as the main point of potential progress from their side, which means that basically they are hoping to see a acceptable level of the deal coming presented by Washington, and then they would potentially approve it. But if there is no consensus on this particular topic, then basically from the Chinese perspective, they would view this round of the trade talk as futile and not successful from their perspective.
William Yang, thank you very much. Some brilliant analysis there. Well, that is all that we have time for this hour, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.